Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Josh Gerben Show. Today, we are talking with Ryan McKeen, who ran a personal injury law firm in Connecticut and has left that practice to start his own consulting business where he's helping other lawyers better run their law practice called Best Era. This is a fascinating conversation that's going to give you a lot of insight on how to better run your law practice from someone that has been there and done it. I hope you enjoy.
Welcome to the Josh Gerben Show, because law school didn't teach business.
So Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today and welcome to the podcast.
Hey Josh, big fan. So happy to be on this show. Thank you for having me.
No, of course. I've been really looking forward to this conversation because I followed you for a long time on social media. I know you operated a personal injury firm up in the Northeast. And I thought, hey, this guy knows exactly what he's doing running a law firm. Like, all your posts on LinkedIn, very much in line with sort of my thinking on how to run a law firm, even though we run different styles of practice. I'm a trademark attorney, you're personal injury. And then all of a sudden I see a post one day that you're leaving the practice of law to start your own consulting business, consulting other attorneys. And I'm like, whoa, my mind was blown. And I'll be honest, look, I would imagine that anybody that's ever run a law firm has always thought about leaving the practice of law. I mean, there are things that on a day-to-day basis, I'm always questioning whether or not I want to wake up and do this again tomorrow. But what was that? What I'm curious in your world, like what was the decision? Why was that decision made? Like, what would ultimately made you decide to walk away from practicing law?
The simple answer is it was time. I really believe that, in so many ways, at least for so many of us, so many lawyers out there, that careers are really like 10-year blocks. And so like my first 10 years, like I spent all my energy and time learning how to become a lawyer, which was what I did, right? The next 10 years, I really spent gobs and gobs and gobs of time learning how to run a business.
Yeah.
And so I'm 20 years into this, and it really became like I was doing work with lawyerists. I was writing, I was engaging with this stuff, I was helping people. And it really just felt like it's time to do something different. Like I had done way more at the law firm than I had ever set out to possibly do. And it became time for different opportunities, different challenges. And really, it just felt like, hey, look, it's really good to just like, I think your body knows, which is, is this activity energizing me? And this kind of work with firms, this kind of engagement in the industry was something that gave me a ton of energy. And so it really just felt like, first era was lawyering, second era was business, and this era, my best era, is teaching. That's what I want to do.
No, and for those that don't know, Ryan's consulting firm is named Best Era, so that was a great segue into the name, and also a great name as a trademark attorney. I always appreciate a good name, and so and having a Taylor Swift fan, 11-year-old Taylor Swift fan running around my house, I very much appreciate the use of Era. So I mean, Ryan, I'll be honest with you, like I've been practicing in my own practice for 16 years. I've thought a lot about there's different business opportunities that come around. I grew up in a family business. My dad runs automotive repair centers. So I'm in the business world, right? I'm not just like some attorney that's out practicing law in an ivory tower somewhere. But the one thing I keep coming back to whenever I think about getting involved in another business or doing something else is financially, I have a hard time seeing it come close to what I can make practicing law and running my law firm. Especially once I have 16 years in, because as I'm sure you know, once you're in it for so long, like just the compounding and the relationships and the client base that's just growing, it feels like a lot to walk away from in a way. Was that something that was a consideration of yours, or how does that? Because I mean, any lawyer that's out there that would be thinking about some kind of leap would have that consideration, I'm sure.
I think my DNA is entrepreneur. And so like my grandfather owned businesses, and I think it's really in my DNA to see opportunities, take risks, go at them. I sort of had one of them, like I sort of had a fortunate way to leave here in that one. I mean, our firm hit $100 million jury verdict,
Yeah.
which is up on appeal. It got remitted to being like $50 million, but the appeal was just argued a few weeks ago, and that went very well. And that will, in all likelihood, result in a very significant payout to me.
Right.
I was also able to sell my interest in the firm and retain sort of ongoing revenue for. I can't go too much into this one, but sort of
Sure.
like there's money that comes out of the firm to me,
Yeah.
and all of which just felt like okay, like one time I met with Stephanie Everett and from Lawyerist, and Stephanie says, well, like what's your cell number? What's your exit
Yeah.
number? And I really started thinking about that, and I bested my exit number that I had thought about with Stephanie that day. And I was like, you know what? I have time. I'm 44. I've got the time and energy to teach, to launch something new, to try something different. And if not now, then never. And I was also able to bring with me some critical members of my team who were instrumental in building that firm to the success it became. Uh, so the timing of a lot of things lined up. I think a lot of life is about timing.
No, and I appreciate that answer. And yeah, that's fascinating because, as I'm sure you know, a lot of law firms it's very difficult to sell a small law firm because of the key man issue. Typically when the
Oh
owner
yeah,
walks out, the value of the firm, evaporates sometimes. So I think, and obviously, having a hand still in some things that might be going on, or as the firm continues to operate, it's a great. I think that's it makes a lot of sense, and yeah, I had a neighbor of mine exit a family business this year, and part of it was taking money off the table. Right, it's there, and you're time to move on and basically take the risk and corresponding money off the table at that time. So I appreciate that, and I think that makes a lot of sense, and it gives
yeah,
you, like you say, the opportunity to start something and do something new. It sounds like we share that sort of entrepreneurial trait. So my grandfather also owned his own businesses. My great grandfather owned his own businesses, and my dad. So I completely understand sort of that way of thinking and the way that kind of matriculates down, I think, through the generations. Uh, when when you're starting a business from zero at 44, though, do you feel? I mean, it's got to be like you're starting from a full stop all of a sudden, right? Or did you have like a few clients when you opened your doors already?
we we had no clients when we opened our doors
Okay.
at all. And truthfully, um, one of the um, we didn't start from nothing. Like we started from a whole bunch of experience. So I had
Sure.
Allison, who's my wife, who really built up the operations of my law firm and helped manage the finances of the firm. I had Brittany, who was my marketing director, and it was really the three of us who started this. So we had a whole bunch of experience not only in how to run a law firm, but actually how to operate a business. So we came at it with, business planning, with, a whole host of things that we were able to make come together really, really fast. And I mean, truthfully, like we set a revenue goal for our first quarter in existence, and like we did like 225% of that. Like we blew that out
Wow.
of the water. And we know that we're just laying the groundwork and we're doing things that are just going to help get us started and really help blow this company up. I mean, we really, when we sat there and ran our projections, I mean, we think it'll be a $2 million a year company within 2 years, and then really probably within 3 to 5 being over $5 million, and doing what it is that we're doing. But no, it was another one of these leaps of faith for us, for me. But I think it was a smart gamble.
No, I think that's fascinating. I'm similar. I'm 43 years old, and I already feel like when I started my practice, I was 27, right? So I had those what I call young legs. Like I could run
Yeah.
forever. I could work around the clock. Like it didn't matter. Now it's like 9 o'clock at night, 9:30. And I'm like, oh man, I'm tired. I
Yeah.
gotta go to bed.
Yeah. But you know
Right. So
what though?
yeah.
That's instructive, Josh, because
Yep.
I go through the same thing. Like I am totally in bed by 9 o'clock. But in a way though, it's so much better because having done this, I've been out on my own for 12 plus years. Like I know the levers that I can help separate the really important things from the things. And so it's like I spend my time focused on I got to get this, I got to get that, got to get this, boom, go to bed. As opposed to just sort of floundering all over the place trying to do a whole host of things.
No, I think that's yeah. No, for sure. You definitely work a lot smarter and not harder as you get a little older. And that saying, I mean, it's so common, but you realize as you get older, you realize how true it is. And yeah, I think that's great. I always thought that starting a business, later would be in life would be a little hard just because of the energy that I felt was needed to get something off the ground. But I think you make a great point that it's more organized energy now, and you're probably wasting a lot less of it because you know where to run.
We, I
Um,
mean, we started out with, we started out running EOS. We started out with vision and values. I mean, that was our first thing. We started doing quarterly planning, org chart, all of these things that I didn't do much later into my law practice, into running a firm, that really made the difference. And having financial systems, having profit first systems, just all of these things. And it's like anything else. Like there's incredible efficiency in experience, I think, if you're um, if you do this at all for the length of time that you've done it and you reflect on the things that really hurt, and the lessons that you've learned, you're like, oh, this, that, this, and
right.
it comes together a lot faster.
I think that's great. And I mean, it's a great pivot in the conversation to sort of my next strong curiosity with somebody like yourself that has been in law practice now advising lawyers. If you're going to start with somebody and you're going to say, okay, we're going to come in and help advise you on how to better run your practice or, optimize for making more money or whatever it's going to be, what are the things? And I mean, I don't know if there's one thing that just stands out to you is like, where do you typically start with somebody? Like what problems do you see when you walk into a law firm that immediately stand out to you as like the common things that lawyers can't get right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, um, you know, you see sort of like the gamut of issues, but the things that reoccur to me are what I would call business disorganization, where you don't have like decision making structures in place. You don't have financial structures in place. People are like, "Oh, my car payment's due. I'm going to take $2,000 out of my business to pay my car payment." Like you don't have uh, businesses that are tend to be in highly reactive modes. They're just responding to what's going on. They're not really thinking about where it is that they want to go. So, I mean, our first thing is always to, at first, listen to see if we are even a fit to work together. Like, really, just like, okay, what do you have going on? What are our skills? What can we help you solve for? And after we've done that, we start getting information. We go right into the financials because financials help tell a story that is important.
Right.
And then we start delving into maybe we interview key people. Maybe we just want to get a real understanding of the core functions of the business, the key people in the business, what the objectives are. Once we get that, we typically then start working with them on their vision. I would say that probably in most firms, like 95% of them, the problems relate to vision problems as to where it is they actually want the business to go. So if we can solve those problems and we can create alignment, the smaller decisions become a lot easier.
Interesting. So, I mean, one of the problems that I think we come into in our practice, and I'm curious to see if you find this, is that you always run into this question of capacity. Like, how many lawyers are you employing versus how much work are you getting done versus what is your profit at the end of the year? Is that something, because you try, I mean, obviously we all know the big law model, which is that attorneys work crazy hours and, a lot of them burn out. If you're not trying to run a law practice that way, it's actually harder than you think, because at least what I have found is that you're always trying to get more work, right? I mean, that's, as a lawyer, it's sort of the lifeblood is the cases or the work that's coming in the door. You always have to be originating new work to keep that sort of flow coming through. But you run the risk that you then overload the existing staff. Like in my case, like, it's like anything else. The old saying, when it rains, it pours. Like, we're in a super busy mode right now because everything's coming due, whether it's a litigation matter or just, people need things filed or need things done. But then, you'll go through a drier season. So how do you counsel your clients on, like, how to properly staff firms? I mean, to me, that's like the hardest thing I've had to do.
Yeah, it's incredibly hard, and it's a struggle, and many practices out there are feast and famine, and here's my advice on this. I mean, the first thing is, in whether you're a solo or whether you're 100 lawyer, you founded a firm that has 100 lawyers, right? The size of your firm and what you do is a choice. Okay, so you have to be very conscious about that choice. And so one of the things that we did at the firm was, at the beginning of the year, really, we spent most of the month of December trying to prepare for this, or a lot of our admin team preparing for this, which is, what is realistic in terms of gross revenue for next year? What do we want our gross revenue to be? Okay, based upon historic trends, what our growth rate is, what our marketing plans are, like, where are we going to end up, right? And so say that, for our purposes here, it's $100, like, that's what you want, right?
Sure.
Okay, how much profit do I want from that, out of that revenue? Do I want to run at a rate of 20%, 25%, 30%, right? And I take that number off the top. So say, we would adjust our profit based upon sort of, how much we wanted to take home, where we thought the investments in the firm needed to be. But say we set a profit margin of 20%. So $20 we're gonna project as to profit, right? That leaves us $80 to do the other things. We put 10% into marketing, so there's $70 left, right? About 40% is going to go into payroll. And once you start doing that and you start doing those projections, it does become possible to work backwards, to key in on, well, look, look, if our marketing's, like, we would do things like, for example, we wanted to generate like 600 cases. And we knew that the cost of doing that was going to be about $1.2 million in the personal injury space. And we knew that cases took on average 529 days to resolve. So we could project our case flow and we could say, look, a paralegal or a case manager, and in this kind of vertical, can handle 75 cases, can handle 100 cases, can handle 50 cases. A lawyer can handle X amount of cases. And then it just becomes simple math of sort of working backwards to see if it can all fit. And where it is that you want to go, making some, database educated guesses, I would say. So that's really how we would do it. But again, it gets back to the bigger question, which is, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be at the end of this year?
I think that's a great point. What would you say? I mean, I know your personal injury space is sort of the expertise here, but what would you say, like, a law firm should expect from a profit margin standpoint? Because I always wonder that myself. I'm like, well, are we are we doing what the industry? Because you always want to be investing in your business, right? So you can't say, oh, well, this year I'm just going to maximize profits and take 90% of it home, because then next year you might not have anything coming in if you didn't work on marketing or spend money or what have you. But is there a number that people should strive for? Because it could probably be all over the map, I'm imagining.
Yeah, and one of the conversations, one of the things, I'm going to take a little bit of a step back
Yeah.
here, is that when I talk about profit, Okay, here's exactly what I mean. I mean that, after you pay everybody, including yourself, a market rate salary, okay?
Hmm.
So your salary is not profit. What it costs for you to be in the firm is not profit. What it costs for you to work in there, you need to treat yourself like every other employee. So sometimes we'll work with smaller firms and they'll be like, our profit margins are 90%. Like, no.
Right.
They're not 90%, and you've got to work back. So really, like when we're talking about, and we're also sort of talking about firms. Like if you're a solo, like that's a little bit too squishy because I'm gonna exclude that. Or you're super small. But if you're a firm of 5, 10 people, it's really what is left over after everything. And so, with that being said, profit margins in law can really range anywhere from, on the low end, 10%. That's a sort of a small margin. Healthier margins, 20%. Re Really efficient firms who are, hit their stride and have somewhat maturity in a way, like they've made the tech investments, they've made the marketing investments, they've done the important branding, 30%. And, my friend John Nackhazel at Mike Moore's firm, from Fireproof, the highest he can hit is 39%. And
Okay.
that's at scale. But that to me is a very big outlier. If you're doing 20%, 20 to 25%, that's probably a really, really healthy margin in this space.
Gotcha. No, that's great to know, and I appreciate that data because I think that gives any of our listeners the idea that, hey, if you're in that space, you're doing pretty good. If you're not, you might need to have Ryan come talk to you because, yeah,
Well,
I mean, but it also means that like you say, sort of what's your market rate, and making sure that you're aware of that. And obviously, there's some tax issues there too. Like you have to take a salary if you're an S
you have
corp.
to
Like you
take
can't.
you have to take a salary, and if your margins are
Yeah,
too high
yeah,
too, like
yeah.
there are a lot of ways that you can uh, accrue deficits in your firm that aren't just in your bank account. If you're not doing the marketing and branding necessary to stay viable, that's a problem. If you're not investing in employee training, if you're understaffing, you're going to underserve your clients. Like,
Mhm.
so don't
Yeah.
go thinking that a 50% margin is like super healthy, because it probably isn't. It's probably completely unsustainable and very, very short term, and probably short sighted.
Great point. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying today's episode of The Josh Gerben Show. This show is brought to you by none other than Gerben IP. Gerben IP is a trademark, copyright, and patent firm based out of Washington, D.C. We've been in business for more than 16 years and work with clients from all over the United States and the world. If you are a U.S.-based attorney, please know that we do accept referrals from attorneys and pay a 20% referral fee for the lifetime of a client that you refer to us. We work really well with firms that don't do IP work, but need to plug in someone that does for their clients, especially someone that's not going to do the other work that you're already doing. So if you need somebody to refer your IP work to, please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is jgerben@gerbenlawfirm.com. Drop me a note. I'll be happy to schedule an appointment with you, talk about our referral program, talk about what we can do for your clients. Thanks again so much for listening. Now back to the show. That's a great point. And I would like to emphasize that because I think and I'll be honest, like I'm guilty of this in running my own practice, is that I think one of the things you worry about is taking on too much salary and too many people. And then all of a sudden the work might dry up or not be there. But very rarely does that actually the case. More likely what the case is that you're trying to get too much out of your existing staff as you're growing and you're not hiring quickly enough. I mean, that's at least been my experience. Do you see that a lot in other law firms where they're just sort of
Yes.
scared to grow?
The number one, 2 and 3 problems for many, many firms, Josh, is that they are understaffed. Um, no, but
Interesting.
it's
Yeah.
just like, well, of course you're not getting this done. You're asking this person to do 4 jobs. Because what happens is when you grow a company, initially, like everybody wears lots of hats. just out of
Yes.
necessity. But then as you get bigger and bigger, like people start needing to specialize. And what you're going to do, and we do look at like the org chart, we're like, well, how are you having this one person do all this stuff? Like it's a log jam. Like what if, you know, and then we can start doing math there. Like, what is the value of their time? How much time can we free up by building this? Like, what are you going to do with this freed up bandwidth in your firm? And so, yes, most of the time, firms are understaffed, and the this really gets back to growth being a choice, because the number of people you have, the amount of work you have needs to be intentional. And if you say, look, I'm a trademark firm and I can handle 50 trademark applications at a time, you're the 51st, I'm going to send you out. You can do that. You can raise your rates if you're in that much demand. But you really have to constantly be measuring the capacity of your workers, because if you're not, you're going to burn them out. They're not going to do important things. Things are going to fall by the wayside. And the way out of it is hiring. But the flip of that is you can get into this forever cycle where you're just hiring and hiring and hiring,
Very
and
good
that
point.
may not be what you want.
Wow. That's, yeah. So, no, that's a very good point. So, if you're saying that now in your firm, when you were running it, did you have a point where you were like, I don't want to hire more? Like, because there is, and I will tell you, and I'm sure you know this from an HR perspective. Like, we have 15 people right now, and it feels like a small army to me because I'm the only one. Like, I'm HR and CEO, and
Yeah.
and I mean, at a certain point, you say, how many more people can we really handle without like changing the structure of, like you say, having it someone that's involved that at least is a part-time HR person, or but like, when did you hit that point where you felt like,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
good, like we don't need to grow this anymore?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm an entrepreneur, and
Right. No,
it's
I hear
like,
you. Right.
hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
at some point, the further you go up in the game, the more fun
Yeah.
it becomes. You're like,
Okay.
oh, I can do this. I've
Right.
always wanted to do this, and now I have the money and talent to be able to do it. Like, let's hit that button. So look, there are different phases to this in general, Josh, and
Mm.
you're in a really difficult phase. Like 15 to 20 is incredibly painful. And the way I sort of explain phases in law firms is, look, when you're out there, you started solo, you could go up to the bar, grab a bar stool, do some work at the bar by yourself, right? Then you
Yep.
add people, it's a high top, then you get a booth. And at 15, like you're at the capacity where it's a long table and people can't talk to each other. You could
Yeah.
talk to the person next to you. It's loud, it's hard to hear. And you're at the point where if you're going out to lunch, your firm needs a room. Like, and then it's going to be like your firm needs a restaurant. So you're sort of you're at the end of the long table. And in the communication starts breaking down, the structures start breaking down. And so you go from at that point to, I would say about 15 to about 25. You need to either stay that size, or you need to really go from a family business to an actual company. And what do actual companies have? Yes, they have HR people. So bringing in that HR hire somewhere between 15 and 20 is very, very smart. Like this is where you start building up your director level people, somebody who's going to be the director of finance, somebody who's going to be the director of operations, somebody who's going to be the director of marketing. And you also need, for us, we adopted EOS at our firm. And so you need those structures on how to handle issues, on accountability, on reporting. All of which is to say it's more of it's a transitory period. So if you're out there and you're at 15 people, yeah, you really consider hiring HR, because as you grow, those problems grow. And also you're in constant hiring mode, and hiring takes gobs of time.
You're telling me. I it's like last couple of weeks, I feel like all I'm doing is interviewing.
Yep.
And and it's a huge, for me, it's not an energy producing activity, as you said earlier in the
Yep.
interview. Like it's like it sucks energy from me to interview people. And so, I find it tiring, but it's, so you're right. It is like a constant process right now. I think what you described is amazing, and I think I really hope it's valuable to people out there because it's a very real problem, and it's a really difficult time to navigate, and figure out what are the right buttons to push. Out of curiosity, and I apologize, I don't know the answer to this question. Like, how big was your firm by the time you were exiting? Like, how many people were you did you have?
Very close to 40 people.
Okay, right. So you kind of made
Very
it
close.
through.
Like,
the, yeah, that's
well,
a lot of
but
people.
that's the thing is like
Right.
there's some study. I wish I had saved the article, but there's some basic study that says that there's a barrier of that firms, not just law firms. It's not
Yeah.
it's companies that they hit 25 people. And then one of two things happens. They pretty much either rapidly advance to about 75 people or
Okay.
they start shrinking. Okay.
Right.
And so that really is a threshold point. And then once you get to 75 to 100 people, that's a whole different, you hit different barriers and different challenges. And that's where you really need, officers in the firm who can help run those things, for sure. But you're in the danger zone, so to speak, at
Oh
50.
yeah, it feels like it.
Yep.
It does.
And it's one of these things too where it's also financially like it was to be blunt, it's really tough because you have sort of like big person problems, but maybe not big person revenues to solve those problems. And in life and in business, money does solve lots of problems for you.
Yes.
So it's hard.
Right. No, for sure. Um, no, that's, I think that to me is, everything you just talked about, I think is going to be really helpful to a lot of people who are listening to this. I want to be respectful of your time. We have about 5 or 10 minutes left. I think one other thing I'd love to touch on with you, just kind of, taking, you mentioned it in the last, as we were talking about staffing. Um, I'm curious because I'm sure a lot of other lawyers that are running law firms experience this, where obviously you're a subject matter expert. I imagine, and I would think that there's probably, your legal skills are second to none. As you're hiring and growing a firm, how are you dealing with this idea that you need to, or you're trying to provide at least the same quality of service that and expertise that it would, if it was Ryan or Josh offering, the counsel, that the rest of your lawyers in your firm are up to that quality and maintaining that as you grow? Because I think that's another fear that a lot of lawyers have. I know I have it, which is, man, if I hire 20 people, I don't know what the quality of work is going to look like, and I'm going to have a lot less control over it because I'm never going to be able to review all of it.
Here's the big secret. Okay, I'm gonna let it out on your podcast.
Hey, I love it.
Make a list of people who are better at you at this thing and go hire them.
Mm,
Don't the real reflex becomes to hire juniors, okay?
yeah,
And okay, fine, like that's fine. But most people in most small firms don't have the time, energy, or capacity to manage, oversee, and train juniors. Find people who are mid-career, late career, but really on top of their game in this respect. Go and recruit those people, pay those people what it is that they need to be paid, and your firm will make much, much more money.
that's amazing advice, and I think really good. I have one question about that, which is, there have been times where we've hired someone who we think is going to be really good, and then everything in the interview process, resume, seems really good, and then you see them put pencil to paper, and you're like, oh, like this wasn't what I thought it was. Is there
Mm.
is there a way that you judged other lawyers if you said, okay, I mean, obviously you can respect somebody and they can say all the right things on social media and you can have great interviews with them. How do you judge the legal talent?
Okay, so I mean, a few things. I mean, the first of all, interviews don't stop when a job offer is made. And then, like, that may not be legally accurate, but in essence, like, the first year is really an ongoing interview.
Mm-hmm.
So, you need to be having an onboarding program. You need the first week, the first 2 weeks, month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months are all very important milestones where there needs to be a review process. There needs to be conversations there. And if it is apparent very early on when you're having these conversations that this is, a lemon of a hire, it's just not going to work for your firm, moving off of that hire quickly is a very good thing. I mean, it's not an ideal thing, but in that
Yeah.
situation, it's the best option. So a lot of times, though, what firms will do is they hire somebody, they give them some work. Uh, you meet their best self in the first few weeks, and then 6 months later, clients are complaining and things are going on, and then you look at it and you go, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is going on in my firm." And then that person is with you for a year to a year and a half because then you put off having that meeting because it's an uncomfortable meeting, and suddenly like it just creates a host of problems. So be very cognizant of your onboarding process. Also, too, like I just think that you know go out if you're a firm leader and you're looking to grow a firm, go out and recruit your talent. Your best talent isn't going to be responding to Indeed ads or even LinkedIn ads.
Yeah.
They have jobs, they have options. Go out, talk to them, say, "Hey, I want you to join this team. Here's the opportunity."
Amazing advice, Ryan. I mean, in this just a half an hour, I've learned a lot, but I think this is one of the densest half an hours we've done on this podcast. So I look, I think if anybody's out there that is interested in getting Ryan's advice and his company's advice on your firm, obviously we'll link to everything in the show notes and you'll provide all your contact information, Ryan, that you'll want for somebody. But if they want to Google you, it's this Best Era, and that is the consulting firm that you started, and I think is going to be to the moon from a revenue and just from a success perspective, because I think you have a lot to offer people.
Well, thank you, Josh. And yeah, if
Yeah.
you're out there and you're struggling with these things, I mean, you know, slide into my DMs on LinkedIn. A lot of people do, and I will talk to you. I will answer it. It's not like a meter starts running if you do that. I've probably, I just believe in giving as much as I can, and things take care of themselves. So just don't hesitate. This stuff out there, if you're listening, it's hard. I have
Yeah.
many battle scars building these things.
Yep.
And but there is help. There are things that can make it easier. And our job, I mean, the reason for our company, in closing here, the name, which was, we were like, well, what do lawyers want? Like, what is it basically? And not,
Yeah.
there's some small percentage of lawyers who want like world domination. Like John Morgan will not stop until he has every car accident, even in places like Bali. But he's a real outlier. And I'm
Yep.
like, most lawyers, what they just want is something better. They care about their firms, they care about their clients, they care about their communities, and it's hard. And they want something better, but better just didn't work from like a naming perspective. So we're like, well, how about best? Like, welcome to your best era. So that's how we came up with that, and that's really what we're committed to doing and working with firms all over the map on where meeting them where they are, understanding what they want, and then helping them get there.
I think that's amazing, Ryan, and yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't mind a little world domination in the trademark space myself, but I'll settle for. But as you know, the one thing you do realize is that you can manage a law firm to a way that lets you have a life. And like I have 4 kids, and I spend a ton of time with them, and I don't miss things, and I'm able to do that because of the way we manage the firm. So while there's definitely challenges to it, there can be a lot of real benefits to it. And I'm sure, again, people listen to this podcast are people running their own firms and trying to run their own practices. So I think everything you've said here has been immensely helpful to them, and hopefully they'll reach out to you for some more advice.
Awesome, Josh. Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks again, Ryan. We'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks again for listening today. If you enjoyed the conversation, it would be super helpful if you leave a rating or review wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast. It helps other people find the show. You know the drill. Please just go ahead and spend a few seconds and do it. It'd be really helpful to us. And finally, today's episode was brought to you by Gerben IP, which is my law firm. Gerben IP is a trademark law firm. We work a lot with other lawyers who do not practice trademark law, but get questions from their clients. So if we can ever be assistance to you or any of your clients, feel free to reach out. You can go to gerbenlaw.com and just go to the contact form. You'll get right in touch with me by filling out a form there. Again, that's gerbenlaw, GERBENLAW.com, and go to the contact tab. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.